Tanmadhyasya yato niviyat karatas teso vigyaswara Jane Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyantiyat Suryaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisago Mesha Damnasvena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they aren't real. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitravocha paramonya matsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon bodham Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni krite kim va prayer ishvaraha sadyo hridi avrudyate tara kriti bihi susustabhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold mysteries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam Sukumakad amrita dravya samyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam Mahur aho raskabu vibhavikaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagvatam, the mature fruit of the desired Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantak Stohi Bhadrani Vidunati Suhitsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nastaprayesu bhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamasloke bhakti bhavati naistaki In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye shita itaranavidam stitvam sattve prasiditi. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manasu bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sanghasi jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasansaya shiyante jasyakarmani drista evat manishvare. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection, and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samvedram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shishi Guru Vastika prayers Gijay. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body and performs others. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such spiritual masters, bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Nadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Chintamani Prakalasatma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshmi Sahasra Surabhira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Sarvatesasram Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvana Malyavamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shyamam Tribanga Lalitani Yataprakasam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Santi Panti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadyam Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasim Yavichintyatatve Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatum Jagadanda Kotim Chaktirasti Jagadanda Yes Chaktirasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajastabtaiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktalyameva Nigama Pratitai Stuvanti Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavitabhyas Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hitesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Ninamenatistan Nana Avatara Makarud Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavatu Jagaranda Koti Koti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahmaniskalam Ananta Tad Brahmaniskalam Anantam Asesha Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Taigrun Yatrad Vishayveda Vitayamana Sattva Valambi Parasattvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jayat Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Golokanamni Nichitamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesa Haridama Sute Sutesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vitaschayena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shristi Stati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chachesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesha Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritagasti Hetoho Yasambhutam Apitata Samapaiti Karya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dipachireva Hitasantaram Abhyupetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma Yastadrikeva Hicha Vishnutaya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Staroma Kupaha Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasatakala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nataha Vishnur Mahansa Iha Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Vasmanya Tasma Sakalesu Nijesha Tejaha Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitad Vadatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvandve Pranama Samayesab Ganadi Rajaha Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganam Ambu Maruddisascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sritayas Tapamsi. Brahma Dikita Patagavatayasta Jivaha. Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yastrindra Gopam Avdavendra Hoswakarma. Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti. Karmani Nidhati Kinchuchi Bhakti Bhajam. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bhitti. Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya Bhavahai. Sanchityatasya Sadrisim Tanamapurite. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravu. Druma Bhumis Chintamani Gana Mahitoyam Amritam. Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki. Chid Anandam Jyotiparam Apitat Aswadyam Apicha. Sayatra Siradi Bhishwavati Surabi Bhyascha Sumahan. Nime Sardakyo Vajati Nahiyatrapi Samaya. Bhajay Sveta Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakamitiyam. Vedantaste Santakshiti Virala Charakatipaye. Shri Shopanishadi Ki Jai Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Ishvaishamidam Sarvam Jatkinja Jagatyam Jagaptena Taktena Punjitaha Magridaha Krishnasviddanam. Kurvani Vahakarmani Jajiva Chekchatam Samaha Evam Twayi Nanitetus Nakarma Lipite Nare. Asurya Namate Luka Andena Tamasavritaha Tamste Pritya Bigachanti Yeki Chatmahano Janaha. Anijadika Manaso Javio Nena Devam Apravam Pravam Asat Tadavato Tyana Tetitista Tasminapo Mataviswa Dadati Tadavato Nyana Tetitista Tasminapo. Tadejati Tanejati Tadure Tadvantike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadu Sarvasya Salbayataha. Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Evanupasyate Sarvabhute Suchatmanam Tatona Vichikapsate. Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Bhut Vijanataha Tatrako Mohakaha Soka Ekatvam Anupasyataha Tatrako. Saprayagachu Kamakayam Abrinam Asnavidam Sudam Apapavidam Kavir Manisi Paribu Swayambu Yatatat Yatorutan Vyadatat Chasvatipyaha Samabhyaha. Yatatat Yatorutan Vyadatat Chasvatipyaha Samabhyaha Andam Tamaha Pravisanti Yevidyam Utas Yevidyam Upasate Tato Bhuyavate Tamo Yayuvidyam Rataha. Anyadevhur vidyaya anyadahur vidyaya iti susrumadiranam yenastad vichachakshire. Vidyam cha yasyastad vedobhayam saha vidyaya miritum tirtva vidyayam ritamasnite. Andam tamaha pravisanti ye sambhutim upasyate tato bhuyavite tamo yayu sambhutam rataha. Anyadevhur sambhavad anyadahur sambhavad iti susrumadiranam yenastar vichachakshire. Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vedobhayam saha vidya vinasena miritum tirtva vidyayam sambhutam ritamasnite. Vinasena miritum tirtva. Hiranmayana patrena satyasya pitam bhukam tattvam pusam apavrinu satyadharma yadristaye. Pusanekase yamasruya prajapatya vyuharasmin samahatejo yate rupam kalyanatamam tate prasyami yo savaso purushaha sohamasmi. Vayuranilam amritam atedam basmantam sariram om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara. Om Agnenaya Supataraya Sman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yodajmat Juhuran Amino Bhuyistam Te Nama Uktim Vedama Om Tat Sat. Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 2, Chapter 18, verse number 22. Shatram Sayaya Vino Pabritam Mahatma Pramadrug Ujita Patam Narakati Lipsu Udanti Asav Avani Kantakam Ugraviryas Tri Saptakritva Urudara Prasavadena. When the ruling administrators, translation, when the ruling administrators, who are known as the kṣatriyas, turned astray from the path of the absolute truth, being desirous to suffer in hell, the Lord, in his incarnation as the sage Parashurama, uprooted those unwanted kings who appeared as the thorns of the earth. Thus he thrice, 7 times, meaning 21 times, uprooted the kṣatriyas with his keenly sharpened chopper. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The kṣatriyas, or the ruling administrators of any part of the universe, either on this planet or on other planets, are factually the representatives of the Almighty Personality of Godhead, and they are meant to lead the subjects toward the path of God realization. Every state and its administrators, regardless of the nature of the administration, monarchy or democracy, oligarchy or dictatorship or autocracy, have the prime responsibility to lead the citizens toward God realization. This is essential for all human beings. And it is the duty of the Father, spiritual master, and ultimately the state to take up the responsibility of leading the citizens toward this end. The whole creation of material existence is made for this purpose, just to give a chance to the fallen souls who rebelled against the will of the Supreme Father and thus become conditioned by material nature. The force of material nature gradually leads one to a hellish condition of perpetual pains and miseries. Those going against the prescribed rules and regulations of conditional life are called Brahmodjihita Patas, or persons going against the path of the absolute truth, and they are liable to be punished. Lord Parasurama, the incarnation of the Personality of Godhead, appeared in such a state of worldly affairs and killed all the miscreant kings 21 times. Many Kshatriya kings fled from India to other parts of the world at that time. And according to the authority of the Mahabharata, the kings of Egypt originally migrated from India because of Parasurama's program of chastisement. The kings, or administrators, are similarly chastised in all circumstances whenever they become godless and plan a godless civilization. That is the order of the Almighty. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When the ruling administrators, who are known as the kṣatriyas, turned astray from the path of the absolute truth, being desirous to suffer in hell, the Lord, in his incarnation as the sage Parasurama, uprooted those unwanted kings who appeared as the thorns of the earth. Thus he thrice, 7 times, uprooted the kṣatriyas with his keenly sharpened chopper. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So here we see that not only the Brahmanas, but the kṣatriyas also are meant to help people go back to Godhead. And this is the purpose of the material creation. The material creation has a purpose, as opposed to what the modern philosophers and scientists and so-called experts say. The material nature is an opportunity for living entities to regain their original position in the spiritual world by engaging in devotional service. So there is a plan of the Lord, and this plan of the Lord should be promoted and supported by the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas. However, due to accumulation of material power and opulence and prestige, people get puffed up by their position in life, and they forget what their real duty is due to engaging in sinful activities, and they attempt to exploit nature for their own sense gratification, which is extremely sinful. This is the general theme of modern education today. This is the general theme of the culture today. People think that the purpose of life is to have sense gratification. And the more you have sense gratification, the more you are a man or a real, let's say, participant in the opportunities offered in the material world. So this is a completely wrong concept. It ruins people's lives and keeps them anchored in the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. So this is mentioned in several places in the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita also. It says the mystery of material creation. Let's take a look at 13th chapter, 20th verse. And it says, everything, of course, is in the Bhagavad Gita and elaborated even more in detail in the Srimad Bhagvatam. And it says, the Lord says, in the scriptures, the Lord says that those attracted by this material nature are undergoing a hard struggle for existence. But we should know that know it with certainty from the descriptions of these few verses that all transformations and influences of material nature by the 3 modes are also productions of material nature. All transformations and variety in respect to living entities are due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. So the mystery of the material creation is the following. It says, the living entities, it says, but with the coming forth of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. Actually, the living entity is originally the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but due to his rebellious nature, he is conditioned within material nature. It really does not matter how these living entities or superior entities of the Supreme Lord have come in contact with material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows, however, how and why this actually took place. So we see the real purpose, it's not that there's no purpose in the material world, that it happened by chance and it's just going on by its own telepathic, look this word up, teleo, T-E-L-E-O-P-A-T-I-C, telepathic tendency of self-perfection or of improving itself. And because of that, it leads to organizing matter so that there is a systematic, predictable, self-sustaining process in nature. This is a nonsense philosophy. It doesn't make any sense at all, and there's no proof that it's true. Nothing happens by itself. Nature does not organize itself. Nature is organized by Krishna. It is his inferior spiritual energy. Do you see the word? Telepathic? What does it say? Say it on the microphone. Oh, okay. You got it? Telepathic.
Yeah. It's supposedly capable of transmitting.
Wait a minute. What did you say? Huh?
Telepathic.
That's telepathy, yeah. Say it in the microphone. This is a Greek, it comes from the Greeks. They made up this theory.
There is a big blog. It talks about what is telepathy and how does it affect corporations.
Oh, no, you got the wrong.
No, it says here, telepathy can be described as the unbalanced pursuit of a goal. To the people organizations undergoing telepathy, the accomplishment of their goals dazzles whether the steps taken in the process are unethical or not. They
Okay,
are not
that's
evil.
not, that's not,
That's
okay.
not telepathy.
We're misspelling it. Let's see. Teleological, teleology, T-E-L-E-O-L-O-G-Y. Maybe I'm misspelling it. Huh? What? Yeah, what does it mean?
The expression of phenomena in terms of the purpose they serve rather than of the cause by which they arise.
Yes, in other words, it eliminates, when it says rather than the cause by which it arises, it eliminates God right there. And it says that basically that nature orders itself. It has a natural tendency of self-perfecting. Yeah, go ahead.
It says that teleology or finality is a reason or explanation for something as a function of its end, purpose, or goal, as opposed to as the function of its cause. A purpose that is imposed by a human use, such as purpose of a fork to hold food, is called extrinsic. Then there is natural teleology, common in classical philosophy, though controversial today, contends that natural entities also have intrinsic purposes, irrespective of human use or opinion. For instance, Aristotle claimed that an acorn's intrinsic teleos is to become a fully grown oak tree. Though ancient atomists rejected the notion of natural teleology, teleological accounts of non-personal or non-human nature were explored and often endorsed in ancient and medieval philosophies, but fell into disfavor during the modern era. Then Kant.
Okay, the modern era, what it means is modern philosophers reject the idea that there's a purpose, a specific purpose in this world, for the material nature or for anybody. And but there was this idea that nature by itself strives to perfect, to self-perfect over time. And again, it's rejecting the existence of God. But the modern fanatics, they go even further and they say that there's no purpose to be achieved in the material world. Everything is chaotic, although the scientists claim that nature acts in an orderly way. So you see, there are a lot of crazy theories floating around, and they use a lot of big words, but basically they reject it rejects the existence of God and says that matter can self-perfect, tries to reach a finality of order and perfection. That's the general idea of it. Okay, so, but no, Prabhupada explains here, but with the coming forth of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of the material creation. That's the whole purpose of the material world. And the modern, even from the ancient times, people rejected this idea that man has a purpose. Especially in modern times, they rejected. In ancient times, they sort of looked on it as a possibility. But the idea is that the Brahmanas and the kṣatriyas were responsible to lead people back to Godhead. Right? So here, in the story of Parasuram, the kṣatriyas started acting in sinful ways and killed Parasuram's father, Janmadagni, and therefore Parasuram killed 21 generations of kṣatriyas, and many kṣatriyas ran away from Bharat, and like the Egyptian rulers and things like that, they were actually expatriates of India, and they settled in Egypt. Okay, so yesterday we did not quite finish the discussion, and we'll come back to Parasuram, but we did not quite finish the discussion about Sukanya and her husband Chayavan Muni. So we're going to take that up again. So Chayavana, of course, was very old, and he had flaccid skin and wrinkles and all types of things, and he was almost an invalid. He couldn't walk very well, but he wanted to marry the young, very young and very beautiful daughter of the king, Saryata, and her name was Sukanya, and she was a chaste woman, and we read what is a chaste woman supposed to act like. So now the two doctors, Ayurvedic doctors, the two Aswini Kumars, who are not full-fledged demigods, they come to visit the ashram of Chayavana, who's a great saint. And he asked them to rejuvenate him into a young and handsome man. And they know how to do that. That's the whole point of Ayurvedic medicine. It can Ayurvedic. Ayur means longevity, and Vedic means knowledge. It's the knowledge of longevity to extend the life of a person and eventually even attain immortality. See, and this is explained in the Atharva Veda in detail, Ayurveda. So they know, the real Ayurvedic doctors, they know how to prolong a person's life, how to rejuvenate a person, and even how to bring back a person from death. They had that power. But these Aswini Kumars, as opposed to Dhanvantari, who was the original, let's say, deliverer of Ayurvedic knowledge and healing, they were not demigods. And only the demigods have the right to drink somarasa. Somarasa is a natural liquor made on the moon usually, and people go there to drink it, and it can increase one's strength and vitality, and increase one's lifespan by 10,000 years every time you drink it. So it's an amazing elixir, and by the way, it has milk in it, so the vegans can't take it, you know. And it has, gold and other things, so all kinds of nectarian things. So the Ashwini Kumars take Chayavana, who promises them, if you rejuvenate me into a young and handsome man, so my wife will like me. Now, Sukanya did not dislike Chayavana. She served him in every way possible to keep him happy, even though he was very old and she was so young and beautiful. So she was a chaste woman, and it explained yesterday in this purport that we read, what is actually a chaste woman. There's no question of divorce, even if you have an old and decrepit husband, or even a cruel husband, there's no question of divorce. And a chaste woman will be able to win over even a cruel husband by her chastity and service. This, of course, would be rejected today by modern women. They say, "Oh, this is horrible," but actually, this is the example of Sukanya that we read yesterday. So now we're going to go further in this pastime, where they take Chayavana and they put him in the Bindu Saravar lake. It's a lake that can rejuvenate a person from old age to youth. And all three of them go into the lake, and when they come out, they're all rejuvenated, they're all handsome, and so handsome and so rejuvenated, and their bodies are so perfectly formed that Sukanya couldn't tell who her husband was. They all looked very similar, and her husband had a rejuvenated body. He didn't look old and decrepit. So she became very troubled, when they came back from that lake, and she begged the Ashwini Kumars, "Please tell me where my husband is," And they explained to her that this is your husband. He was rejuvenated by us. Now, because they rejuvenated him, he gave them the permission to drink the elixir of youth, and the Indra becomes very angry that he did that, because only the demigods are allowed to drink that elixir. So he comes and he's going to take some action, but Chayavana stops him. He had the power to stop Indra. That's what a powerful yogi is. He had done so much tapasya, and therefore the demigods permitted from that point on for the Ashwini Kumars to drink the Somarasa. Okay. But let's hear what it says here, because there's some very important points. It says, then Sukanya's father, Saryata, comes to visit Chayavana and his daughter, and he doesn't see Chayavana. Chayavana is there, but he can't recognize him because he's young and beautiful and handsome. Thereafter, King Saryati, desiring to perform a sacrifice, went to the residence of Chayavana Muni. There he saw by the side of his daughter a very beautiful young man, as bright as the sun. After receiving obeisances from his daughter, the king, instead of offering blessings to her, appeared very displeased and spoke as follows. "O unchaste girl, what is this that you have desired to do? You have cheated the most respectable husband who is honored by everyone, for I see that because he was old, diseased, and therefore unattractive, you have left his company to accept as your husband this young man who appears to be a beggar from the street." So right away he jumps to a conclusion that is completely wrong, because he can't recognize Chayavana Muni, right? Purport: this shows the values of Vedic culture. See, this is the Vedic cultural center, right? This is where we should cultivate these values. So now we're going to learn what they are. According to the circumstances, Sukanya had been given a husband who was too old to be compatible with her. Because Chayavana Muni was diseased and very old, he was certainly unfit for the beautiful daughter of King Saryati. Nonetheless, her father expected her to be faithful to her husband. When he suddenly saw that his daughter had accepted someone else, even though the man was young and handsome, he immediately chastised her as asati, unchaste, because he assumed that she had accepted another man in the presence of her husband. According to Vedic culture, even if a young woman is given an old husband, she must respectfully serve him. This is chastity. It is not that because she dislikes her husband, she may give him up and accept another. This is against Vedic culture. According to Vedic culture, a woman must accept the husband given to her by her parents and remain chaste and faithful to him. Therefore, King Saryati was surprised to see a young man by the side of Sukanya. Now, today, the feminists would say, this is horrible, this is nonsense, this is the patriarchal hegemony that renders women like slaves, and we can't accept this at all. But wait a minute. We just said that the goal or the purpose of the material nature is to help people go back to Godhead, right? So if the purpose in life is to go back to Godhead, now what is the purpose of a young man and young woman getting married? Well, you ask them and they'll tell you, well, we're going to enjoy life together, right? Well, that's the illusory influence of Maya, this enjoying life in the material world, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So for eating, they go to Costco and Fred Meyer, and they collect coupons, and they buy cheaper things, and they order on Amazon this thing. You can order your food on Amazon also, because Amazon owns Whole Foods. And, so there's this elaborate eating. Well, if there's elaborate eating, there's elaborate passing stool. So therefore you have these special toilets. I also see in even devotees' houses, they buy the special toilets, that has the hose and it's a combination bidet toilet. Bidet is a French word. And usually in France there's two toilet let's say receptacles. One is for passing stool, and the other is for cleaning yourself after passing stool. So in America, of course, America is always more advanced than everyone else. They combine the two into one. So there's big eating and there's big passing stool, right? And then there's sleeping. So you buy all these complicated beds. You can adjust one side to a certain hardness or softness, and then adjust the other side to a certain softness or hardness. And they spend, $2,000, $3,000, up to $5,000, $10,000 for these beds because they want to sleep and sleep in. Even our devotees, they sleep in on Saturdays and Sundays, and maybe other days too. Who knows? Because we don't see them coming to the class. So there's the bed, and then of course the bed represents sense gratification, and then there's eatings and sleeping and mating and defendings. And defending, they get insurance and they buy big iron fences and get all kinds of gadgets to protect them. And so this is not the purpose of life: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That's what animals do. And human beings do it in a very refined way. Okay, fine, but it's the same thing. See? And Prabhupada explains, the satisfaction of a dog sleeping in the street is the same as the satisfaction of a man or woman sleeping in a soft bed in a nice house. The satisfaction. Satisfaction of sex is the same for a dog as for a human being. See? So, but the dog doesn't need all these paraphernalia to do these things, right? So, therefore, the expectation of the handsome man and the beautiful woman is that they're going to have a lot of sense gratification together. But that's not the purpose of human life. That's not the purpose of the material nature. The material nature or the material world is an opportunity for people to go back to Godhead by engaging in devotional service. So therefore, if Sukanya is forced to marry a very old and decrepit man, that's actually a benediction in the sense that she can remain chaste and she can meditate on Krishna all the time and go back to Godhead. Now let's say she has not an old decrepit man as a husband, but a cruel man, like the Taliban, they force 10, 12, 13-year-old girls to marry these old men who are lecherous. Again, there's different ways of looking at it. Of course, the young girl is going to be exploited sexually and maybe even beaten and forced to do so many things. But that may be looked at in a different way, that if she completely takes shelter of Krishna or God and becomes very submissive, eventually she will conquer her mean, cruel husband. And the example is Sukanya, who basically pleases Chayavana Muni to such an extent that he uses his mystic power to rejuvenate himself into a handsome man. But basically, she becomes a chaste wife, or sati. So a chaste wife develops mystical powers. Like Sita Devi, she was a chaste wife, even though she was kidnapped by Ravana, he could not defile her. And eventually, and she warned him, give me back to my husband or your whole dynasty will be destroyed. And he didn't listen to her, and that's exactly what happened, because she had mystical powers by her chastity. So this is misunderstood by people, especially women, and they don't understand where their real power is. They think their power is through divorce or through equality or things like that. But there is, if you read the Bhagavatam as we're reading it, you'll see that the greatest women in the history of the world were Vedic women. And they had unimaginable powers because of their chastity. So you have Sita Devi, of course you have Radharani, and then you have Shilavati, and you have so many of these women that were developed through their chastity and their purity, mystical powers that were invincible. Okay. So it says in the next verse, O my daughter who were born in a respectable family, how have you degraded your consciousness in this way? How is it that you are shamelessly maintaining a paramour? You will thus degrade the dynasties of both your father and your husband to hellish life. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, it is quite clear that according to Vedic culture, a woman who accepts a paramour or second husband in the presence of the husband she has married is certainly responsible for the degradation of her father's family and the family of her husband. Now this is understood even today. Therefore, fanatical Hindus will kill the daughter and sometimes the husband and sometimes the paramour. It happens a lot in villages in India. If the daughter cheats on her husband or leaves the husband and lives with another man, it happens a lot. But that's not the real purpose here of what's being said. It says, it is quite clear that according to Vedic culture, a woman who accepts a paramour, a second husband, in the presence of the husband she has married, is certainly responsible for the degradation of her father's family and the family of her husband. So yes, it's a serious thing, but you don't heal that degradation by killing the daughter or the paramour. The rules of Vedic culture in this regard are strictly observed in respectable families of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and Vaishyas even today. Only the Sudras are degraded in this matter. So you don't have to kill the girl in order to stop the degradation. It only would increase the degradation by killing the girl, right? But you have to tolerate it and try and convince her to give up this abomination, because not only it affects her, it affects the family of both the boy and the girl, say, of both the husband and the wife. For a woman of the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya class to accept another husband in the presence of the husband she has married, or to file for divorce, or accept a boyfriend or paramour, is unacceptable in Vedic culture. Therefore, King Saryati, who did not know the real facts of Chayavana Muni's transformation, was surprised to see the behavior of his daughter. So Vedic culture is very serious about maintaining chastity, not only for women, but for men also. If one only has sex to procreate, he's considered a brahmachari. Okay, so we'll stop right there. I'm going to continue to finish this, and then tomorrow we'll go deeply into Parasuram. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. See, now today they'll kill the daughter and the boyfriend, but that's not the way you stop the degradation of the family. You see how things get all mixed up,
They do the killing also for intercaste, like not intercaste, but if you marry outside of caste and all that.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's not what you're supposed to do. You see how the Brahmanas are not teaching properly. And then the people just, speculate and make up their own minds. It's going to affect our family, so we've got to kill our daughter. It's crazy. Haribol. You see how far people have gone off track in India.
The goal is different. The goal is their prestige or something else.
Yes, exactly.
The purpose is different.
Yeah. Right, lead. See, if we read Bhagavatam carefully, we'll learn what is real Vedic culture. Even the women in ISKCON don't read it properly.
सर्व आशा
Te prasade pune sarva asa. Chakshudana dilaje janme janme prabhu se. Jnane prakasito. Prema bhakti javite avidya vinasajate. Vede gaye chanara charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Kena Lokera Jivana. Kena Lokera Jivana.
प्रभु गुरु दया दे मोरे पाद छाया
Prabhu Pura Daya Deya Mori Pada Chaya.
प्रभु गुरु दया दे मोरे पाद छाया
Prabhu Pura Daya Deya Mori Pada Chaya.
बेजा घुष
Tribhuvana.
बेजा घुष
Deveya Srishti Bhuvana.
प्रभु पा लोइलो शरण
Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
प्रभु पादा जय प्रभु पादा जय प्रभु पादा जय प्रभु पादा
Pada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaprasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini.
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine.
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikachasta Tarasatara Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sukho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premananda. All glories to the assembled world. All glories to the assembled world. All glories to the assembled world. Glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Sesas Nivare Paskatya Desatan Gaura Premananda. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotions. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the author of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavan Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhutali. Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste. Devi Guruvani Pacharini. Nirvisesa Sunya.